What would you think if I told you that the most attractive woman in the room is often the one who doesn't even know she is being watched? She walks through the world not with glittering armor or boastful pride, but with the soft, unconscious grace of someone who has met herself in the dark and chose to stay. While others clamor to be noticed, she disappears into her own presence, and that is precisely when the air shifts. There is no costume more magnetic than authenticity, no fragrance more intoxicating than inner peace. She doesn't perform. She doesn't beg to be perceived. She simply is, and in her being, she stirs the unconscious of those around her. You've seen her before, not on magazine covers or viral reels, but in moments. The woman whose silence says more than the loudest voice. The one who listens with her eyes, not just her ears. The one whose laughter is not rehearsed, but erupts like spring breaking through frost. This kind of beauty cannot be manufactured. It cannot be worn like a trend or injected like a promise. It is archetypal, ancient. It belongs to the deep feminine, the realm Jung called the anima, the soul within the soul. And yet she doubts. She looks in the mirror and sees what the culture has trained her to see. Not enough, not thin enough, not curvy enough, not smooth, not tight, not radiant. And so she shrinks, not knowing that her power was never meant to be measured in angles or approval. She forgets that true attraction isn't loud. It doesn't need validation. It operates from the unconscious, and what moves the unconscious cannot be faked. Attractiveness, in its most potent form, is not physical. It's psychic. It is the pull of someone who knows who they are, even if they are still healing. It is the raw, unfiltered energy of someone who has stopped performing and started becoming. When a woman stops trying to seduce and begins to simply exist in her wholeness, the world pays attention, even if she doesn't. The attractive woman, the truly attractive woman, often does not feel attractive at all, because her beauty is not dependent on confirmation. It is forged in solitude, in her wounds, in the hours spent confronting the shadow parts of herself, the envy, the insecurity, the rage, the grief. She has not run from them. She has sat with them, touched them, named them, and by naming them, she reclaimed her power. That kind of inner work radiates far beyond skin. It creates a resonance, a magnetic field of truth that pulls others in, often inexplicably. You may be that woman. You may be the one who wonders why people stare at you when you're lost in thought. Why strangers open up to you in grocery store lines. Why you're remembered long after you've left. And maybe you dismiss it. Tell yourself you're just being polite, just lucky, just background noise. But you're not. You are the signal. You are the woman who doesn't realize she's being studied. Because you are not performing, you are living. And that living, that soft, self-contained presence, awakens something in the collective psyche. Carl Jung said that the unconscious is always projecting, and what it longs for most is wholeness. When a woman begins to embody her wholeness, however fragile or imperfect, others unconsciously recognize it. They don't understand it, but they feel it. They crave it. Some will be drawn to you, others may resent you, but none will be indifferent, because the woman who has touched her own darkness cannot be owned. She cannot be controlled. She is not defined by her desirability, but by her depth. And in a culture obsessed with surface, that kind of depth is revolutionary, subversive, unforgettable. So if you've ever felt unseen, yet oddly magnetic, if you've ever been underestimated, only to become unforgettable, if you've ever felt alone in a room full of eyes, know this: your beauty may not scream, but it sings. It echoes. It carves itself into the subconscious of those who meet you. Not because you are perfect, but because you are real. But the world rarely teaches you to recognize this kind of power. Instead, it teaches you to question it, to second guess the pull others feel around you, to downplay your mystery, your intuition, your sacred chaos, the very things that make you impossible to duplicate. You begin to wonder, if I were truly attractive, wouldn't I feel it? Wouldn't someone have told me? Wouldn't I see it mirrored back to me more often? But here's the paradox. The most captivating women often move through the world in quiet power because they do not depend on being mirrored. And precisely because they do not seek the spotlight, they create one of their own. She does not beg to be validated because she has begun validating herself. She does not chase attention because she is learning to sit in her own company and enjoy it. And this unsettles people, especially those who are only familiar with women who need to be needed, who serve to be seen, who perform femininity rather than embody it. There is a magnetism in stillness, a sensuality in solitude. Most people are terrified of it, but the woman who has befriended her silence does not fear disappearing. She knows her light does not flicker just because no one is watching. In Jungian psychology, there is the concept of the shadow, the unconscious parts of the psyche that we exile, repress, or disown. And for many women, one of those exiled shadows is their own allure, their erotic presence, their right to be desired without shame or explanation. You see, many women were taught that to be attractive is to be a danger to themselves, that to draw attention is to invite punishment, that their beauty is not a gift, but a threat. So they dim, they slouch, they speak less, they become invisible, not because they lack radiance, but because they fear what radiance will cost them. And yet, the more she tries to shrink, the more the soul rebels, the more the unconscious finds ways to shine through. In the glint of her eyes when she laughs, in the strength of her walk when she forgets to doubt herself, in the aura of mystery she carries without effort. She does not flirt, but she fascinates. She does not try to impress, but she is remembered, because something about her feels whole. Not flawless, not polished, but complete. The kind of completeness that comes not from perfection, but from integration. She has tasted sorrow and joy, rage and tenderness, fear and courage, and she is no longer trying to amputate any of it. And this integration, this union of opposites within her, creates a gravitational field around her. Even the most distracted souls pick up on it. They may not know why they're watching her, only that they are. Something in them is responding to something in her. It is the deep instinctual call of archetype to archetype, soul to soul. Sometimes, when she enters a room, people stop speaking, not because she demands it, but because her energy reorders the space. The feminine in her awakens the feminine in others, and the masculine, the true masculine, feels a call to rise, to become worthy. But here's what she doesn't realize. She often mistakes her intensity for awkwardness. She mistakes her depth for being too much. She assumes the tension she evokes in others is a bad thing, when in truth, it's just recognition, a reckoning, a silent response from the world. We see you, even if we don't know what to do with you. To be truly attractive is to unsettle what is shallow. It is to call forth what is buried. It is to walk with the energy of a soul who has been cracked open and did not run from the breaking. You, who think you go unnoticed. You are the mirror that others avoid, not because you're empty, but because you reflect what they've forgotten. You remind them of what they abandoned in themselves. depth, mystery, emotion, the sacred. And so, they stare. And you wonder why, and because you wonder, you keep searching for proof. You scan conversations for clues, study your own reflection, like a puzzle you've yet to solve. You ask yourself quietly, am I desirable? Am I seen? But the questions themselves are the echo of a system that taught you to tie your value to reaction. And what Carl Jung would remind you is this: when you seek yourself in the eyes of others, you abandon the gaze of the self, not the ego, not the image, not the false persona you wear to feel safe, but the deep eternal self that knows you are already whole, that knows attractiveness is not something you chase, it is something you remember. It was always there, beneath the shame, beneath the comparisons, beneath the heavy cloak of not enough. It was waiting for you to return. Most women live with a split inside them. The part that knows she is radiant, and the part that doesn't believe she's allowed to be. And when these parts go to war, the soul fragments, the woman grows tired, she overperforms, she doubts her own worth every time someone turns away. She keeps score with her reflection, and in doing so, she loses touch with her most sacred gift, her unrepeatable essence. But the moment she stops performing, the moment she turns inward, everything shifts. She begins to see the subtle signs of her allure, not in how many men text her back, not in the likes or the compliments or the approval, but in the way people pause when she speaks from her soul, in the way children instinctively trust her, in the way animals relax around her, in the strangers who confess too much, in the exes who cannot forget her. She begins to notice how the room responds to her presence, even when she says nothing. She notices how others fidget or soften in her orbit. She feels her own frequency begin to rise, not out of arrogance, but alignment. She is becoming herself. She is shedding the masks, and that is the most attractive thing a human being can do. Because the feminine is not meant to chase. The feminine is meant to draw in, to attract by essence, not by effort. And when a woman returns to her essence, her stillness, her sensuality, her sovereignty, she becomes a force of nature. Not in how loudly she moves, but in how deeply she is. Jung wrote of the anima as a guide, the unconscious feminine spirit that connects us to life, meaning, creativity, and intuition. When you embody your attractiveness from this place, it ceases to be decoration. It becomes initiation. Others are not just seeing your face, they are being invited into the soul beneath it. And that kind of beauty has gravity. It is not the gravity of seduction, but of remembrance. It reminds others of home, the home they lost in themselves, the home they ache to find again. And it's not just romantic attraction you inspire. It's reverence, curiosity, a desire to know you, not possess you. Because true attractiveness, Jungian attractiveness, is not about domination or appeal. It is about authenticity, depth, the sacred dance between light and shadow that creates something real in a world addicted to illusion. You will know you are attractive when people look at you like they've seen a ghost, not because you are haunting, but because you are true. And truth, in a world built on pretending, is shocking. It wakes people up. It shakes them, and in shaking them, it heals. You might never be told you're beautiful in the way you expect. You might never be the type others feel brave enough to compliment. You might be too much for some, too subtle for others. But when someone is ready, truly ready, they will see you, they will feel you, because your energy will speak a language they didn't know they remembered. That is how the unconscious works. It doesn't knock politely. It seeps in. It disrupts. It beckons. So if you've ever felt like your presence lingered longer than your words, like people left your company feeling more alive, more stirred, more confused, that's not accidental. That is the signature of archetypal beauty. And the deeper this beauty runs, the quieter it becomes. It no longer needs performance, packaging, or polish. It doesn't scream. It hums, like a forgotten melody returning to someone in the night. Woman who truly embodies her own radiance rarely tries to convince others of it, because she knows the ones who need convincing aren't capable of receiving her. Anyway, she has stopped auditioning. She no longer makes herself small in order to be digestible. She no longer softens her truth to avoid being too much, because she understands now her power does not lie in pleasing, but in presence. And presence is not about being loud. It is about being real. The most attractive people are not those who are adored by all. They are the ones who are remembered by the soul. And memory of the soul does not cling to perfection. It clings to resonance, to truth, to the feeling of being awakened in someone's presence. The woman who radiates this kind of power does not always walk with confidence. No, often she still battles doubt. But the difference is this: she doesn't let doubt decide for her. She walks anyway. She speaks anyway. She dares to be seen as she is, messy, emotional, radiant, evolving. She has confronted her own shame. She has mourned the girl who tried to be everything for everyone, and in doing so, she has become the woman who belongs to herself. And this is why she is attractive, even if she doesn't believe it. Because something about her says, I am not afraid of my darkness anymore. And in a world terrified of the shadow, that's magnetic. Her energy says, I am no longer trying to win you. And in a culture of chasing, that's revolutionary. People don't understand it at first. Some are drawn like moths, unsure why. Others feel exposed in her presence, as if she sees too much. And she does, not because she judges, but because she has seen herself. This is the power of shadow work. It purifies perception. When you stop rejecting the parts of yourself the world told you were unlovable, you start seeing others more clearly. And in that clarity, you become a mirror. Not a funhouse mirror that flatters or distorts, but a sacred one, the kind that forces people to meet themselves. That is the real reason people feel you. You stir their unconscious. You unsettle the carefully curated image they built to survive. And sometimes they love you for it. Other times they resist you. They label you cold, intimidating, unapproachable. Not because you are, but because you are no longer manageable. You are no longer willing to fold yourself into their comfort zones. And this is how you know. You've crossed a threshold. You don't bend to be liked. You don't dilute to be chosen. You no longer need to be seen, because you have seen yourself. And that self-recognition, that holy act of looking into your own eyes and saying, I am enough, even here, is the most powerful transformation a woman can undergo. It changes how you move, how you speak, how you love. It changes what you tolerate, what you chase, and what you allow to die. And in that death, the death of the performative self, something sacred is born, the embodied woman. She is not a role, not a brand, not a reaction. She is not nice. She is not cool. She is not low maintenance. She is sovereign, sacred, sometimes soft, sometimes storm, and always true. And that truth, that raw, unfiltered essence, is the kind of beauty that seduces gods and terrifies cowards. It is the beauty that poets try to name and mystics bow before. It is the kind of attractiveness that transcends the body and roots itself in the soul. And if you've read this far, perhaps you are that woman. Perhaps you've just forgotten. But even forgetting is sacred. Because in the forgetting, in the aching void where self-worth should be, the soul begins to whisper again. Not with words, but with sensation. The tightness in your chest when you betray yourself. The fatigue in your bones after pleasing. To many people, the invisible pull towards solitude when the world grows too loud. These are not signs of brokenness. They are invitations, initiations, gateways. The woman who feels lost in her own reflection is often the one closest to finding something real. Because she has begun to question the illusions. She has stopped believing that beauty is earned through suffering, or that being wanted is the same as being loved. She has begun, perhaps for the first time, to crave herself, not her image, not her reputation, but the truth pulsing beneath all the layers she was taught to wear. This is where individuation begins. In Jungian thought, individuation is the lifelong process of becoming whole, of integrating all the rejected, forgotten, and silenced parts of the self. It is the sacred unraveling of who you were told to be, so that who you truly are can emerge. And as this happens, as the fragmented pieces find each other again, the woman begins to glow with something that no algorithm can fabricate. Depth is magnetic. It is the signature of someone who has lived, not just survived, but met life, felt it, wept with it, danced in its darkest rooms, and did not turn away. The woman who has depth may not know she is attractive, but everyone else feels it, because she carries stories in her eyes, silence in her smile, and a kind of presence that cannot be copied. She does not shimmer with effort. She emanates with ease. She does not dominate the room. She transforms it quietly, and still she doubts. Because the world rarely affirms this kind of beauty. It praises the loud, the curated, the palatable. But your power was never meant to be palatable. It was meant to be felt, and feeling, real. Soul-level feeling is not always comfortable so. The ones you attract may be startled. They may not know how to name what they feel in your presence. They may fumble their words, or guard their hearts, or project their wounds. And you, unsure of your own magic, may take this as a sign to dim. Again, don't. Your presence isn't too much. It's just honest. And honesty in a world that feeds on illusion is disruptive. But disruption is divine. It clears the stage. It makes space for something true to rise. You do not need to become more beautiful. You need to become more you, more raw, more rooted, more willing to stand in your own vibration, even if no one claps. The woman who knows her worth does not wait for applause. She does not check her reflection in the opinions of others. She walks as if the earth belongs to her, not because she believes she's better, but because she remembers she is made of it. She remembers that her body is not an ornament, but an altar, that her emotions are not weaknesses, but messengers, that her desire is not dirty, but divine. And this remembering, this homecoming, is what makes her radiant. She could walk into a room in silence, and people would turn their heads, not because of her clothes, or her hair, or her curves, but because of her field. She is not just seen, she is sensed, like fire in the distance, like water in a drought. Others feel her, and in feeling her, they feel parts of themselves that have gone dormant. You wonder why people stare, because your energy calls to their soul, because your wholeness is unfamiliar and unforgettable. Because you've stopped begging to be chosen and started choosing yourself. And that is what beauty looks like in its highest form, not decoration, but declaration. A woman who has stopped hiding, a woman who has stopped apologizing, a woman who has stopped shrinking to fit into places she has outgrown. A woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.